Hello, I'm Dr. Katherine Horton. This video is now about what one can do to actually fight this sprawling military intelligence complex. And to understand what to do specifically, one has to, well, there's several approaches to take, and depending on, how you want to approach it, there are things that you can do which are actually surprisingly effective and will maybe come as a surprise to you because they seem like kind of minor things to do, but actually are hugely important. And to understand why they are so effective, you have to understand how the system works and what sort of systems we're dealing with. But the situation we have now is essentially one of capture. Our society has been captured by the military intelligence complex. It has subverted our democracies for a very long time. The tools that are being developed by the military and by the intelligence agencies, for example, the surveillance software that exists, fundamentally subverts the way human beings operate, the way they communicate, and give actually corrupt elements a huge amount of power, which automatically leads to subversion of our democracy and the subversion of the way humans operate. Then I don't have to tell you that the amount of money sloshing around in the military intelligence complex is also not beneficial, simply because money corrupts people. So if we think about what to do, the problems that the victims are up against is, first of all, that the actual typical organizations that they would go to for help are captured. So it seems to be the case that the police is captured because the police seems to be actually subordinate to the intelligence agency. So when the capture originally, actually at its source comes from the intelligence agencies, then it percolates down. Also, the intelligence agencies, through their sprawling informant network, have essentially subverted medical care. And that's what victims find out when the intelligence agencies want to target them specifically. They find out that even their, maybe a corrupt doctor will do harmful things to them. If they go to a hospital, then they will be attacked inside their hospital bed. They will be injected with horrific other things, and really nightmarish things happen. So what this is classical deep capture. It is the deep capture and the capture of a system by ulterior motives, by external influence, by corrupt elements outside the system. So what you ultimately have to do is you have to fight capture. So what then you have to do is run the program to recover a system from capture. That's number one, and I will explain in detail how one can go about doing that. The second thing the victims have to fight is essentially this dichotomy between the publicly available information about the technology and the technological standard we have today, and the real technological standard that is not just available but also being used by the intelligence agencies. So you have to bridge this educational gap. If people have never heard about microwave weapons, then it sounds incredible that you can be targeted inside your home. But as soon as you've explained microwave weapons, it becomes obvious to anybody that yes, indeed, as soon as these weapons exist and cost less than a laptop, then a lot of that sort of attacks should occur, and therefore it's not surprising that they do occur. So it is essentially bridging this educational gap and recapturing the systems we have. So we have to basically make the systems that stop functioning functional. Like they used to function in actually not that long ago. So we have to fight this runaway process. Now, to do that, originally a lot of the intelligence agencies put out disinformation to, first of all, disorient you about who's at the source doing it. So they would say, no, it's not the intelligence agencies, it is the mafia. Or it's not the intelligence agencies, it is aliens. Or, it's not the intelligence agencies, that's just natural corruption occurring. Or it's not the intelligence agencies, it is your personal mental health issues. And you can discredit all of these, trumped up charges, these kind of, figments of their imagination, not yours. So all these false explanations have to be debunked one by one. Okay. Then after that, you have to, of course, fight the financial damage done to you, the psychological torture that you're put through, and you have to overcome that if you're a victim. Now, if you're just someone helping a victim, then you don't have these problems. But the key thing is to realize that actually it can be overcome, and it is easier than you think. And a lot of these resources are being poured into specific things to keep you away from trying the right things. Okay? And what you have to do is essentially go where the resistance is largest. So when the intelligence agencies go absolutely ape, when you're doing certain things, they're going ape because they really don't want you to do that. You know, it's basically, it's like when you you know, you have maybe played this game with children. You know, you hide something, like little children, then they have to find it, and then you say, you know, as they're getting closer to the object, you say warm, warmer, warmer. Now it's getting hot, and when they're going away from the object, it's getting cold, very cold. You know, and then you teach little children to kind of orient themselves based on, you know, feedback commands and so on. You know this game probably. And it is a game like that, you know. So when the noise gets very loud, you essentially have to think, now it's like hot, hot, hot. It's getting hotter. I'm right on target. And another way of putting this actually comes from an actual veteran from the Vietnam War who was a fighter pilot. And he said, you know that you're above the target when you take the flak. You know, so when the enemy starts shooting back and the shooting gets ever more severe, that's because you are above the target. They are now throwing all their defenses at you, you know. So in a sense, what you have to do to fight back is to go where the resistance is largest. So if this, you know, and you can actually map out the system that has been, you know, the traps that have been put up for people, because when the ride is very smooth and very, you know, neutral, and you're encouraged to do something, and it's very easy for you to do something, and you don't meet any sort of resistance, you are most likely barking up the wrong tree. You know, you must be, because the intelligence agencies wouldn't allow you to do that without going ape at some point, getting nervous and trying to fight back. So if no one's fighting back, you're probably going in the wrong direction. This is not to discourage you. This is not to say, oh, well, if you've got a moment of peace, you're doing the wrong thing. No, no, no. You need rest. But in a sense, you have to go where the resistance is largest. And you have to take everything that's thrown at you in these terms. Instead of getting upset about maybe the stalking and the harassment that you receive when you're going to a lawyer, you have to think, oh, if they suddenly ramp this up and they're starting to subvert my lawyer, then I should really talk to a lawyer. Then this is probably what they're trying to subvert, you know. And similarly, if a lawyer is very, very, very easy to get, you know, and he's got no doubts that you're saying that the truth or not, and it's just like, yeah, sure, you know, why not? And at the same time, you know how hard it is to get a lawyer. Be suspicious, because he might actually be an informant. Unless you have got information about his track record, and then you can honestly believe that he has come around to this point of view, or you happen to know that he's done a lot of research in this area himself, then you know what I mean. Put it into context. But overall, if there's something where you experience a lot of sabotage, so you're trying to send emails and these emails don't arrive, they are probably the right emails to send. Then make phone calls, then fight until you get through. Similarly with officers, if certain government officials don't allow you to talk to them, then they are probably the ones you should really talk to, you know. Or if they're very nasty, it's most likely because they are perhaps part of this, perhaps they are, you know, fighting it. So concretely, what are the concrete steps you have to do? So everything else I say will be related to these two aspects. Number one is bridging the information gap. And number two is recapturing the system. So getting rid of corruption and recapturing elements. Now, if you can't do it on your own, and I will say you can't do it on your own, you also have to add in an extra element, which is recruit other people. Okay, so you bridge the information gap for them, you explain in the simplest terms of what is happening to you, you convince them that what you're saying is the truth. You also convince them that actually joining your cause is a worthwhile investment that they can benefit from, and you know that they should do for their own protection, their own safety, and in their own interest. And then what you do is you combine your energy and your time with these people, you try to have positive synergies and amplify yourself positively, and then try to recapture the system. But ultimately it is about recapturing the police, so that the police starts to investigate these crimes. They have turned a blind eye for absolutely decades, and that has to stop now. The second thing is recapturing the judiciary, that these crimes, when they're brought to a court of law, they are not just left hanging inconclusively. There is a point in getting government inquiries. However, I think the recent history has shown that government inquiries tend to just run into the sand, and that might be because the system is so captured. In other words, the politicians are so corrupt that any inquiry will be just set up to waste your time. However, court cases have to come to a definite end. You know, court cases have to absorb evidence. And so my personal gut feeling, but you might disagree, is to actually go over the courts and restore the rule of law. That is what I would personally say. If you disagree, then find other ways to recapture the system, because there are many, many ways. There's also many ways to restore the honesty of politicians, and so on. So this is now to set the scene. And now I'm going to talk about actual definite things that you can do. So the first thing, I would start with all the things that you can do to bridge the educational gap. Number one, and this might be much more effective than you think, is to find somebody who talks about these topics and who tweets or posts about these topics, and retweet or repost whatever they are saying. So, you know, whatever platform, social platform they are using or you're using, amplify their voice. If it's something that you think is what should be done, amplify them. If you're, for example, on Twitter, just retweet and retweet your retweets. So send people reminders, because as you know, for example, on Twitter, you know, we're swiping through our time stream, and if people are following lots and lots of people, then your voice might be lost. So retweet, not just when you get the tweet yourself. Have an actual program in your mind that you're retweeting at high peak times. You're sending the same thing over and over. If people ignore it, or maybe rephrase it, find ways to get the message across. You know, sometimes the stuff that I found very effective is to start a tweet with "Did you know?" and then a short sentence. You know, or "Oh my God," and then "This is what's happening," or "Beware," you know, or "Breaking news," you know, stuff like that, which gives people a signal of where to place it, you know, or alert, or, you know, many other things. Or also questions that engage people. You know, I found a surprising number of responses when I said, "Isn't it funny that?" You know, because people are curious, like, "Oh, what's so funny about that?" And they start reading your tweets, you know, stuff that catches their eye. So this is really highly effective, because tweets, and this is why Twitter has been shut down in the, you know, in the Arab Spring and in all these many other revolutions, because it's soundbite, you know, little messages that stick in your mind. It's essentially the meme generator. So it can go viral very quickly, it can spread very quickly. And what you have to find is the information. You have to grab people's attention and get the information in that they really want. You know, so retweet people who say the right stuff. Also repost educational videos, and make it over and over, and remember to actually, for your community to realize how important this topic is, you have to keep going on and on and on about it. So if they miss it first time round, get them the second or third or fifth time round, you know. The other thing is, just have the courage to talk to people about it in real life, you know, over your lunch break. Did you know, by the way, I'm following this and I think this is the craziest thing that's happening. You know, did you know about it? Talk to people about it in real life. Talk about your family and friends who you trust, but also to colleagues, and you know, just strike it up. If you're in a country where people strike up random conversations in a bus stop, just do. I mean, just the other day I started having a really deep conversation about politics and the disadvantages of, you know, outsourcing and globalizing corporations with someone with whom I literally stood in a queue. And we were just outside, it was cold, the weather was miserable, we were all grumpy, and I just, you know, made a snide remark about us having to queue, and we ended up in a conversation. And this turned out to be just a very highly educated man with just, I mean, very interesting opinions. And just do that and network. So this is the information spreading bit. The other thing is also that if you find somebody whose opinions you like, or you find somebody who has summarized a certain aspect of this criminality really well, add your own credentials to it and quote them. If you don't have the time to make your own video or your own post, tweet them and say, I agree with this, you know, or as far as I can tell, this is true, or oh yes, I've heard about it, you know, and stuff like that. So add your own credentials and amplify the education, and just spread it, you know. So this is number one. The other thing is, you know, seek out videos that you like and try to help people whose voice you think should be amplified. And if you have the time, you know, make your own videos. So if you're a victim, I know it can be extremely hard to come forward, and not everybody has got the courage to come forward like I do, where I just leave my shielding up. And I don't care, because I want to show them, you know, behind here, they are my real prints. You can see the edge of the picture frame. And I'm using these pictures to actually hang my shielding. But I just don't mind. I want to show people that this is just how it is. Now, you find an environment where you are happy to come forward, and just think that this, whatever happens to you, is not your fault. It is not your fault. So you shouldn't be blamed. And then maybe put in a disclaimer and say, you know what, I think what's happening to me is actually used to discredit what I stand for. It's used to smear me. It's forcing me to talk about stuff that I personally actually find sickening, or just outright nuts. And frankly, everything that I've observed in terms of my stalking, the street theatre and harassment, I find not just nuts and psychopathic, but sometimes also really stupid. But then make it clear, it's like, hang on, this is not me, you know, just say they. I mean, I can't believe what stupid stuff they are doing, you know, and why should I bother with this? I mean, my time is just too precious. And literally make it clear that you're not what you are complaining about. This is being done to you, but these are two different things. And then when people try to smear you with mental health, just, you know, use statistics against them. Say, well, it can't, if you're a woman, it can't be schizophrenia and paranoia, because 70% of all the victims are female, and schizophrenia and paranoia are 60% men. Look it up yourself, you know, you can find even Wikipedia entries about this. Say, well, you know, there are many, you know, well-known victims. So you have to put a little arsenal of replies to this and say, well, actually, no, what is happening now is just an artifact, a consequence of these sprawling networks. So have a set of replies and put-downs in your armory for the most standard things that people have. Or maybe also compile frequently asked questions, you know, where you literally just for yourself, you make a Word document and you write down the stuff that most often hits you. And think about what sort of, how would you answer that? And just don't take it as criticism, just take it as the learning curve. So if your friends and family don't understand, then don't get frustrated, just realize, that's my work cut out for me, that's the educational gap, that's why I have to pick them up, you know, to get them to the next level, and be patient, and remember it can sometimes take months or even years to get your head around unpleasant information. So this is just to bridge the sort of educational gap. What you can do is also, and this is now, hang on, I've got an entire list. Oh yes, so if you go to my website, there's an entire list under, it's the third link on the right hand side, so the very top row, it's called Help Us. Help Us Please. And there I list all the different things that you can do. So the first thing is literally retweeting and stuff like that. The other thing is highly efficient, highly effective, is to not just watch my videos. I mean, on my website, I'm suggesting my videos, but also find other victims who are saying the same stuff as you. So if you, for example, I was attacked from cars. When I drive my car, I'm being shot in the head with microwave weapons, sometimes microwaved in the face so that it feels unpleasant, and you know, you've got the usual burning sensation. Sometimes it's literally pulses to the head and other really nasty stuff. Once I was bruised up with shots to my arm, and many other things. So then it really helped me to find one gentleman on the other side of the world, I think in Memphis, who said, well, I'm being attacked from cars. And I just can't believe it. These cars are being fitted out with these weapons and I'm being targeted. So if you can find someone else who sounds credible saying the same thing. You can basically say, you know, for everything that you're complaining about, find a credible victim who has come forward and said, well, look, it's happening to him and him and him as well, and just look at them, they are trustworthy. Then the other thing is that you can really, and all these things, by the way, cost you no money whatsoever. The other thing that I think is also effective is writing to specific people personally. So essentially spread the information, not just to people, you know, in your own social circle, but also to government officials, and say, by the way, did you know, so I am so and so, and this is my background, and now I seem to have been targeted. Do you know what to do? Do you know who to suggest? And try to write it such that they have to reply, so that they have to suggest something to you and they have to reply. So involve them in the conversation and slowly try to get hooks in the systems that you expect to work but do not. Then the other thing is, do go to the police and do go to health officials, but actually make a file. So try to keep a you know, a backup of all the evidence. So this is now all about recapturing the systems. If you go to the police and you find that they do not actually react to what you're saying, you should you know, force them to. You should make it public that they haven't reacted. You should tell all your friends, you know, you should tell everybody. You should post it somewhere socially where people can find it globally. Post it on a website. If you submit anything to the police, if you have to leave hard evidence, they make a photograph of it and keep it and back it up, you know, in many, many places, so that it's really hard to sabotage. Burn it on CD, post it on, you know, actual cloud services, post it on encrypted cloud services, give copies to it to your friends, your family, whatever. And if you hand stuff into the police, maybe also do it in a written format, that you say, look, I have handed you this, and ask them to sign a receipt for everything that they received. Everything you say, ask for a transcript or record it yourself with a dictaphone, so that the idea is that the police and you have got the same information and can prove the same content. So if there's any malpractice or any corruption inside the police, you can prove it. And then you say, okay, you don't panic, you don't get angry when corruption happens. You think, aha, that is the point at which the system has been corrupted. Let's recapture. And you work on that point until it's made functional again, or they pass it further up, and then you see if the level further up is also corrupted. If it is not, you force them to repair the level below. If they are corrupted, you do the same thing again. It's like a rock climber. You kind of like put your fingers into any crevice and you pull yourself up. And you think not, oh my God, all this corruption, it's happening to me, they hate me, I'm at the mercy of the system, there's nothing you can do, the government's so powerful. No. What you say is, oh, I've now seen the traces of the capture, of the system capture. Now I'm here, I've got dealings with them, I've got a reason to force them to get rid of the corruption. And everything I do, even when it's hard, it is an investment into the recapture of the system. You're investing your time, your effort, your letter writing, your postage money into recapturing the system. And any irregularity you detect, you report. And you also help transparency by making it public that this corruption happened. Tell your friends, tell the local authorities, tell the press, you know, and so on. So recapture everything. As soon as you detect something, make it public, broadcasters, and say, hey guys, can you believe it? This is not what we stand for. And calibrate essentially against your integrity and your, you know, upstanding and your uprightness. Calibrate the system against that. If there's any discrepancy, it means the system is captured, and then recapture it and keep going. Then the other thing that you can do is, if you yourself are not involved in the struggle, don't have the resources, or don't have, you know, the actual wherewithal or the energy, or you're scared, you can do something much better. You can become essentially a watchguard of another activist. Pick your favorite activist, but also remember to pick weak ones who are maybe not, you know, don't have a high social following, you know, who are maybe activists for very offbeat causes, or are just vulnerable, or just don't have the speaking ability. So don't just follow people who you like. Follow people who you think should be supported. You know, people of high integrity. even if you think that their YouTube videos are like mine, are not really the best, you know, if you think they're doing valuable work, support them, keep an eye on them, say positive things to them on Twitter, help to bash down the trolls. That's also really valuable. If you do the work of bashing down the trolls for somebody else, you know, you keep their Twitter and their YouTube comment section clean, or if there's a nasty comment, it's immediately battered down. You know, twist the balance, and then the person who's the activist also recognizes that you care about them. Their trolls are frustrated because they're beaten down, you know, with really good arguments all the time. And then, most importantly, if something happens to that person, you know, then become active. So this way, you don't have to be active whilst they are fighting, but should something happen to them, or you think that they are really treated harshly, pick up the phone, make phone calls to the officials who are responsible, then make phone calls, you know, essentially become the watchguard, the watchdog of this person, you know, and make it clear in your tweets. It's like, guys, if anything happens to her, I'm watching her. This is so valuable, you have no idea, because the intelligence agencies are also monitoring networks. So if you pull people into your network and you actively keep an eye on them, that will be noticed, and essentially less harm will be done to them because they're now integrated in the community. So actively look for weak people, people who are vulnerable, who need help, and pull them actively into your community. And as long as you're just slightly more alert, more educated, have slightly more time, or have maybe a higher social standing, use that to slide above them as a protective layer. It needn't be much. As soon as you're just slightly more knowledgeable than them, slightly better positioned socially, you know, slightly more people, or go to the pub more often than them, you can help them by spreading the news about them. You can make, you know, you can plead for their cause with your friends in the pub. You can have a discussion about them, spread the information. And actually, all these things that are virtually for free have a huge impact. You have no idea how big that impact is. Then you can also do very specific things. For example, you can write letters, and actually emails are great, but remember, emails can be deleted with a click. Or if you get 1,000 emails, or 100 over a page, you do Control A, highlight them all, and press delete. 3 buttons and 1,000 emails have been just deleted, 1,000 complaint emails. For those agencies that don't have freedom of information, right? They might not keep it, or somebody who's working on it might just ignore it. So what you can do is write physical letters. I don't have a pack of, if you go and look at what a pack of 500 sheets of paper, of printer paper looks like, it's typically this thick and is really heavy. So if you can write, or can get your community to write 500 letters, 500 people is actually quite easy to recruit over social media. But if you can get 500 people to write to the same person at the same time, or over, if you want to have a shock, a shock attack, then just write it in the same week. And typically letters are not gotten rid of that quickly. So by the end, this person will have a sheet of, a block of 500 letters just about a topic. Well, that leaves an impression. So you can help other activists by kind of thinking for themselves, and almost like a basketball team or football team. They might have the ball, they might be running across the field, but you can position yourself to get rid of somebody else who might be attacking them for them. So you could be just like a, part of the team of silent helpers. You can, maybe officially or even unofficially talk to your MP, talk to the press. And if you're not a victim, if you're an external, and this applies to all sorts of activism, by the way, you can help a cause if, as somebody who's not part of that cause, just as a member of the public, badgers the press and says, why are you not reporting about this? And keep badgering them and say, listen, I keep hearing about this stuff. What sort of newspaper are you if you're not reporting about this? Identify specific journalists and apply pressure to specific people. Recapture the press. Why are they not reporting about it? So this is all part of the strategy for recapturing systems. What else can you do? Yes, then another really important thing is that you actually, if it's something very sensitive and actually part of an ongoing crime, for example, the victims of the intelligence agencies, you have no idea how much service for society you can do by making backup copies. Should the information disappear off the web, post it yourself. Post it anonymously, or give it to people who post it, or give them, you know, a link to somewhere where you have stored it. Make physical backup copies. If you think something is really important, download it and burn it on CD. It takes you like a second, and CDs can be bought for really cheap. And I would really urge you, keep a CD burner. Don't just go with external hard drives, because they can be accessed and overwritten within seconds. Now, overwriting a CD that you've burned is, I mean, pretty much impossible, because most of these CDs are not, you know, rewritable. But someone would have to gain physical access to your house. Now that's already a very high barrier, okay? So make physical backups, make printouts of articles, make, you know, burn stuff to CD. CD burning is even quicker. If you don't have a CD burner, just buy one that you can connect with a USB, and get into the habit of making local physical copies and really important stuff. You have no idea how much you can actually help. Certain activists had, you know, their website hacked, information disappeared. If they can just tweet a request to the community and say, does anybody have a copy of what I've posted, of this video, this information, this link? And people come back with, oh yeah, I do. Hang on, let me just go through my files. What was this again? Oh yes, here, there it is. It's worth gold. So that you can also do. Then write your own blog posts and articles about it. Add your credentials. Or if you've got insider knowledge, contribute it. Contribute the stuff that you have read, links, associations, information. Use essentially what's in your brain to contribute to the cause. This is worth gold, because a lot of it is about information gathering and applying information. Then if you've got special expertise like legal expertise, you know, don't just run around thinking, oh my God, if I'm a lawyer and I provide wrong legal, you know, help, I will get sued. No one's got time to sue you, frankly. And you can write a legal disclaimer and say, you know, not in my professional capacity, but I think you want to look at this. Or maybe it helps you to look at that. You know, point people, put pointers there. None of the things that I said cost you actually any real money, you know. The other thing that you can do is file freedom of information requests. Badger authorities by saying, well, I know that these victims, for example, exist, and they've reported it to these authorities. Now I'm forcing the authorities to reveal that they know about this by filing freedom of information requests. And if what the authority gives you in terms of information, and it doesn't tally with what you can confirm from other sources, raise all hell about it, you know, then attack them under the freedom of information side. And yes, it can be, you know, a long drawn out process, but nevertheless you've got no idea what has been uncovered with freedom of information. So if you have this in your jurisdiction, please use it. Just file these things. You know, it's basically just a letter. You send a letter and you request information, and that's that. You know, maybe there's a small fee like $5. Well, even if that is the case in your jurisdiction, then just pay it and say, this is what I invest in the recapture of our systems. The other thing that's really good is also come as an observer to court cases, because you've got no idea what an impression it leaves to a judge, where, you know, if they maybe thought that it's a small legal case and someone really poor can be just like brushed under the carpet. If suddenly the room is full with people in suits, you know, then suddenly the judge thinks, oh, hang on, people are watching the court case and my judgment will be read, instead of just, you know, disappearing into the bowels of, you know, legal writing. And then everything will be taken a lot more seriously. The other thing that you can do is also find out activists who are going to the police station and just, you know, or maybe report something, and just accompany them. And when you accompany them, look as official as you possibly can, and just say, well, you know, I'm just a supporter, or maybe you can act as a Mackenzie friend. This is a legal term, the Mackenzie friends. You know, you're supporting their cause with maybe extra legal knowledge that you have. So all of these things that don't cost you money. If you happen to be unemployed, or you happen to be depressed, and you really just feel isolated, you know, if your biggest problem is isolation, then help other people who've got other problems, you know. If you're unemployed and you've got all this free time, well, try to link up with these causes, go along, use the fact that you're not in work, go along, make friends, help people, and, you know, at the same time network and try to find a job, you know. So really interlink and do all these things together. And then finally, I would say, I will make a lot more detailed videos about all the things that you can do in detail. This is just a short rundown. But the other thing is, you have to target individuals inside the system that you think is captured or is corrupt. You have to target them, either by talking to other people and say, look, I really think this person is corrupt, they should be removed. But be very careful, do not smear anybody, right? Because sometimes, and I will explain that in future videos as well, sometimes people can seem to be the corrupt ones, and even though the corruption is above them and they are being forced, they are actually good people that should stay in the system, but they are being forced by invisible people above them you do not see. You know, so try, if you really have to target somebody, the higher you get, you know, the better. You know, because they usually can withstand the attacks, you know, and maybe you can make them think. Make phone calls, you know, literally try to have a budget, you know, for phone calls that you think you're gonna make the cost of the phone calls. Maybe you've got an all-inclusive package, or you've got 3 minutes on your mobile phone, you know, and you haven't used them up at the end of the month. Why not make activist phone calls? Literally for laughs, try to get through to journalists, try to get through to police officers, question them about their point of view, why haven't they done certain things, and question also lawyers why they're not supporting certain cases, or inform them. There's a million things that you can do, and actually they are very, very cheap. And as long as what you're doing is not spamming people, not harassing people, but stay uber polite, stay uber friendly, and, you know, just genuinely try to bridge the information gap, try to spread information through your community. As long as you're not abusive, it is hugely beneficial of what you do. Because in a sense, I mean, as far as this particular topic is concerned, I mean, everything I said you can apply to all sorts of other activism. But as far as the out-of-control intelligence agencies are concerned, a year ago I had no clue. I had no idea. I was actually being stalked myself, but I didn't know about the extensive takedown program that's gang stalking. I had no idea that there were thousands of people. I had no idea that doctors, lawyers, other scientists, politicians, entrepreneurs were also the target. And I'm not saying, ooh, you know, they should only target poor people. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that intuitively one always thinks, oh, they will just target, you know, vulnerable people. And, you know, when they stop doing that, what it actually implies is that they have now reached huge power, you know. But as I said, the intelligence agencies have been this powerful for decades, but I've been utterly ignorant. So you can do a lot of the work, and also you can, maybe if you're very sociable, or have a very you know, a personality that people respond to, contribute that, you know. Raise this topic at dinner parties, or help maybe other victims or activists who cannot express themselves but who you think are really contributing to good stuff. You can contribute many things, you know, your time, your effort, your personality, your voice, your credentials, and all of this will cost you no money whatsoever. So everything I listed might cost you time and minimal amount of money, but in de facto not very much. Oh, another thing also, if you go along and you think that some really dodgy stuff is happening and you have the money, buy a dictaphone, be like a second set of, you know, evidence collecting unit for a victim, you know. Recording people against their knowledge is sometimes illegal in certain jurisdictions. It depends on the, you know, finer points. But then you have to weigh it, right? I mean, if you if this is a crime, say, that you're recording somebody, but actually something else that's happening is a much worse crime, which is maybe the systematic torture of somebody else and the utter corruption of the police force, then you can weigh it up. Is it worth you know, the risk of actually you engaging in that crime and as an undercover reporter recording things which then can be used as evidence, maybe, you know, or that might be used as evidence should the laws change or the circumstances change or the gravity of things that are being committed. I mean, ultimately it is about transparency. So do not record stuff in you know, people's private sphere, No, that's not what I'm talking about. But if it's in an official capacity, in an official government building or in the public sphere, and he quite officially is committing rather horrific crimes or is engaged in horrific corruption, then I really think it would be a good idea if that were recorded, you know, and by one means or another would find its way to a public forum like YouTube, you know what I mean. So weigh it up, right? And if it takes just civil disobedience and maybe going against the rules, if you've got reason to believe that people high up are going against the rules much worse than that, then it might actually be a good investment going against the rules, you know. So these are all the things that you can do, and a lot of them will well, you can send letters and make phone calls your own, you know, by yourself, but actually by sending letters and making phone calls, you might actually get in touch with people who actually share your point of view. You might actually make friends inside the organization, and that should really be your the way to approach it. And if you want to recapture a captured system, the most important thing is to find out who is actually really captured and who's maybe just being put under pressure but is otherwise totally functional within the system and is actually maybe a good guy. So do not make assumptions. Be aware that what you're doing is essentially just pinging or testing the system, you know. You're kind of testing the system and seeing where the rotten bits are. And remember that the rotten bits might be above, you know, the people who act rotten, and they might have all sorts of, if you like, genuine reasons to act that way. Maybe because they fear for their job and they actually are supporting even more vulnerable people at home, you know, and they rather think, oh, keeping my head down, you know, they also make a calculation of, okay, I might, you know, harm this person, but if I don't do it, 3 people, you know, are harmed even worse for life, or, you know, all these calculations play in. And what it's about tilting the balance back, you know, de-incentivizing corruption, making it all transparent, you know, blasting it out there. So if you can invest your time, your, you know, your phone package minutes, your you know, the time it takes you to retweet with adding your comments, the time it takes you to type an FOI request. I mean, why the hell not find out how to send a Freedom of Information request for laughs, you know? And you can be creative. You can just suggest it to your friends in a pub. Don't be silly about it. Don't be stupid. But hey, why not? You know, if you're meeting your friends, or, you know, or if you're really bored one Saturday afternoon, or actually if your children really get on your nerves, you might be surprised just, you know, how much information they can gather for you. So why not say to your kids, hey, instead of just really getting on my nerves, why don't you find out X for me on the internet? Find this information, I want to repost it. Why don't you contribute what you know? You know, why don't you do something useful with your life, young man, and start learning how to fight for justice? There's a million things you can do. So be creative, and actually, yeah, this is the most important thing. Be creative, and if you have the strength, slightly more strength than somebody else, then use that strength, you know, to speak up for somebody else, or do something that somebody else maybe doesn't have the capacity or the intellect or the time, you know, or the courage to do. And yes, I think that's it. There's much more structured stuff, but this is probably enough to get you going, because any one thing that I said can already move mountains if you keep doing it and if you amplify it. And it's much easier than you think. So retweeting doesn't cost you any time whatsoever. Following people who don't just say funny stuff but also say important stuff also doesn't cost you any real effort, and you actually might enjoy the entire experience. So enough. These are all the things that you can do to fight them, and ultimately it's about spreading information, bridging the information gap, and recapturing our systems in a civilized way, in a way that we do not harm people, we do not make the good guys lose their job, but we find out who the bad guys are, we try to turn them, and if we can't, yeah, we try to get rid of them in a non-violent sort of way, if you know what I mean. We try to get them out of the system to push much more qualified people back up. So this is the plan. If you've got better ideas, please post them in the comments. Thank you.